should know how does the nuclei behave, what are its dimensions, what happens when some external particle comes and hits it, or what happens when basically there is an electron which is coming and hitting it, and so on, or what are the different ways of knowing about the nucleus. Okay, this is what is we are going to study in today's class, and we are going to focus on electrons to understand the property of the nucleus. This is actually a very broad topic, but we are going to cover it in brief. Many of the things will be more or less theoretical in nature. So when we talk about this nuclear properties or structure, which was in the 1950s, so it's been long back, okay. So at that time there were a lot of assumptions which were made, which was seen that was not correct later on. For example, if we just consider, let's say, the Rutherford model, we do know that most of the mass is located in a small dense center of the atom, which is nothing but the nucleus. Now this is something which still holds, it's still there, because one of the major observation was that during that time the alpha particle recoiling back was minimum in number, most of them were scattered, and many actually passed away straight. So that means there was a very small region along which there was a recoil. So that region actually comprises of the nucleus. Based on that, even the diameter was actually measured. So nuclei usually consists of protons and neutrons, and as we all know that we also call them together as nucleons. They do show some similar behavior, so that is also important. Now, if we consider electron scattering, we can actually consider up to 15.7 eV, and of course fast neutron scattering. Nuclei do have a finite radius. So what does it
Sir,
mean that?
sir,
Yeah, bolo.
sir, have you started right round just now, sir?
Yeah, this is the first slide.
Okay, okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. So
हाँ
what
सर,
we
गलत
have is,
मीटिंग में ज्वाइन किया था हमने
हाँ हाँ,
सर। हमने ज्वाइन किया था
Sir,
चार
we are,
पांच लोग, लेकिन वो मीटिंग रॉन्ग था, गलत मीटिंग था, इसलिए फिर से हमको यहाँ पर ज्वाइन करना पड़ा, इसलिए लेट हुआ सर।
Acha. So the thing is, before we really proceed with this, whenever you are joining a meeting, check the date and the time, ठीक है? तो उसके हिसाब से करोगे, there will be no confusion, ठीक है? Initially ना सबको problem होगा, don't worry, ठीक है? So कितने लोग आ गए? अभी देख लो एक बार में, क्योंकि मैं थोड़ा दुखी हो गया था, बहुत कम लोग थे. हाँ, good. Okay, so all are here, then that's good. We can actually do well. Okay, so what we can do is, okay, we'll find out a way. Probably I'll message you the link or something. Anyway, so this was the first slide. I'll just go back again, and we were just started. This is the first slide, so as a proof. So what we started with was the discussion on the nuclear structure, which was done in the year 1950s, and then the very first thing that we know was the Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment. Now, Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment did prove that most of the mass of the atom is situated within the nucleus, and is in fact very dense. And we do say that because we know that mass of proton is of the order of 10 to the power minus 27 kg, and mass of neutron is also 10 to the power minus 27 kg, at least the order. But then mass of electron is 10 to the power minus 31 kg. So of course mass will actually be contribution from the nucleus. So what happened was, it was seen that nuclei did consist of protons and neutrons, and we together call them nucleons. These things were studied in 1950s. It was something which was proven, but many of these things proved later to be more detailed. Okay? We needed to know more information. And then if we consider basically a nuclei, there can be a possibility of electron scattering, and then there is also a possibility of fast neutron scattering. And these scattering experiments were conducted to know about the radius of the nuclei. So if you remember from yesterday's class, and this is always a very basic general knowledge, that 10 to the power minus 15 meter or 1 Fermi is something which is the nuclei radius. But when we basically consider something, let's say atom, it's 10 to the power minus 10 meter. So obviously the density has to be more, because the number of electron and number of protons are more or less same, and because the nuclei as a whole, or the atom as a whole, is neutral. So nuclei do have a finite radius. This was also partially said by Rutherford, because his experiment also proved, okay, a lot of things, which was actually which is still valid. Okay, but then a lot of things which was not known has been started. People have started working on that, doing research on that, and it basically forms the form of the charge distribution was unknown, okay, at that time. How was the charge distributed and all those things? This was actually something which was not very clear, and of course no knowledge of the substructure of the nucleons and others, then electromagnetic interaction. So basically what happened is, other than, okay, it's not others, what happens is basically there will be some kind of electromagnetic interaction possible, but the substructure was not really proved at that time. By substructure we mean what we have seen yesterday, that of course the protons and the neutrons are composed of quarks. So in general we can say that the protons and the neutrons are not truly fundamental. I also like to add something here, that we do call that neutron is more or less neutral, but that is again not very true. There is a very simple reason for that. Okay, and I hope all of you will accept it, accept this fact that neutron, we do say it's neutral, but when we consider that it is composed of one up quark and two down quarks, the up quark and the down quark separately are charged particles. The total may be neutral, but in general it is not totally neutral. Okay, it's not purely neutral. So we have to understand that fact also. Well, later on we will see that proton will decay to neutron and so on. Then why does that happen? Because we know one is charged, one is chargeless. All those things we are going to see in the later classes. But this is something which is important, which you already know. And then this, I think I don't need to explain much. Okay, this is basically the alpha scattering experiment. I preferred taking this diagram rather than drawing it because of my great drawing skills. So what happens is you basically have a source of alpha particle and you may have a lead box, okay, and then you may allow some alpha particle could pass out through this, okay. It will be a radioactive material. It was a radioactive material, and then we do have the gold foil, okay, and then we saw that there is a lot of deflection happening, but most of the times the particles are undeflected. So that is why most particles are undeflected, and then yeah, is that my problem or you have a question? Okay, better keep yourself muted, okay? But else you just keep yourself muted, it'll be easy. Okay, so we have this beam of particles and then it hits. Most of the particles are undeflected and then there are some scattered particles and there are very few particles which will actually come back, okay. So it is basically having a very good collision with the nuclei and it comes and hits this part, okay. Now what is this screen? This is actually nothing but a fluorescent screen. It is actually made up of zinc sulfide, okay. So zinc sulfide, what happens is if we have a charged particle hitting it, it basically shows a glow, okay. So this is a fluorescent screen. And then if you consider the radius of the nuclei from this particular experiment, it was seen that R naught is R is equal to R naught into A to the power 1 by 3, the unit is Fermi. And then R naught is experimentally determined to be 1.2 into 10 to the power minus 15 meter. For all practical purposes, you can take this value, okay, but there are of course finer corrections to it. I'm not going to go into that now. Then once you know this Rutherford scattering, the question lies, which is actually the first topic in your syllabus if you see, why there is a need for electron scattering. I had the alpha particle hitting the nuclei and then it's basically giving me a lot of idea about the nuclei. But do I need an electron scattering experiment? The answer is yes, because electron is a much better probe. Now, if you have concentrated on your second semester experimental technique, you must have come across this term called probe. Okay, I think I have not used it too many times, but we did use. Basically, what happens is if you want to detect something, okay, there needs to be a kind of sensor tip. Okay, that is basically called a probe. So, in general, what we say is that when we consider electron as a probe, that means electron is something which is going to reveal more and more property of the nuclei. So that is why we call electron is the ideal probe. Okay, so what happens is these are actually point particles. We know we can for all practical purposes consider them massless. So if we consider them massless, they are not massless, but if we consider them to be a very small mass, because of these concept of momentum, conservation of momentum and so on, if an electron hits the nuclei, the change in the system is going to be minimum, and we are going to get a good result out of it. Okay, and they are actually resulting only in electromagnetic interaction. So there is an electromagnetic interaction kind of thing, for the simple reason that nuclei is positively charged, electron is negatively charged, so there is going to be that kind of interaction. There might be a deflection, okay, and so on. But then this is applicable at lower energy. The energy will be actually less than 1 GeV, giga electron volt. You know that basically when the electron reaches a higher and higher speed, whatever we have studied in relativity, the mass is going to be more difficult to manage, right? So that is why the energy is more or less than 1 GeV. These electrons are used to probe the nuclei. We also need to remember that even 1 GeV, we are actually considering a relativistic case. Okay, we are also considering a relativistic case. So basically there will be an elastic scattering. So we have the conservation of energy and momentum, as we know, for elastic scattering, everything happens. Okay, and then there is no disintegration of the nucleus. Now this is important because whenever I am taking an electron hitting the nucleus, I am interested in knowing the property of the nucleus based on how the electron scatters, okay, or deviates, okay, or deflects. I am not interested in changing the nucleus. Okay, that also we do, but that's a different experiment altogether. But here the aim is different, and that's why no disintegration of the nucleus should be there. That's why the energy should be less than 1 GeV, first point. And second thing is, if we use electron, the mass is very low, so obviously the disintegration chances are less. Then the interaction type that happens is basically based on the de Broglie wavelength of the electron. So in general, we know photons. So we basically have the energy photons, or the packets of energy that we already know. I think I've already given a question also, photon, phonon, and all those questions. So photon we have. So these electron behaves as virtual photons. Okay, they are not really photons because they are moving. They do have mass, but we are just neglecting them. And based on this, we will be actually having the elastic and the inelastic scattering. But then it becomes difficult to study the inelastic part. Definitely there will be inelastic scattering. Some will be scattered inelastically. Some energy will be lost. But then we are concentrating more on the elastic part. Okay, and so these experimental setups are actually done. So the thing is, when basically the charge distribution is there within the nucleus, it can be determined using elastic electron scattering. That gives me a better understanding compared to Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment, because in alpha scattering experiment we are not really sure about the charge distribution, okay, whether it is evenly distributed or not, or might be on nucleus only on one side there is positive charge, on one side there is the neutral charges. Is it there? Actually no, because it's evenly distributed, okay, as far as we know. So these kind of ideas was developed by using elastic electron scattering. Now, if you actually assume the uniform distribution of proton within the volume of the nucleus, so we are assuming now that yes, protons are uniformly distributed, then we can say that this charge distribution can give an approximation to the distribution of matter within the nucleus. So basically, this can actually tell me that how much matter is there in the nucleus or within the nucleus. Okay, so there are a lot of calculations for this. Okay, and then these are also nothing but a very good research topic. So what happens is that the incident charge is minus E. So we are saying that there's an electron which is getting incident on the nuclei. So it is minus E instead of plus 2E. So I hope you understand why I'm saying plus 2E, because plus 2 is nothing but the alpha particle. Okay, so we are not considering the alpha particle here, we are just considering the electron which is getting incident, and hence of course the mass is different, right? So obviously plus 2E means you are basically having 2 proton, 10 to the power minus 27, which is 10 to the power minus, it's totally different, right? 2 into 10 to the power minus 27 of mass you are using kg. But here you are basically taking just 10 to the power minus 31. So obviously the mass is different, the information might be much better. But then as I said, you cannot do away with quantum mechanics, very important. And then of course we'll use relativity, because we are considering high speed electrons which is comparable to the speed of light, and then relativity comes into the picture. When we use these concepts, we can actually derive what we call as the scattering formula. Rutherford's alpha scattering formula or scattering experiment does give you the result on nuclear cross section. we are going to derive it, okay, but we are going to do it a bit fast because I think you have already done it before, but for as an essence it is important because we need to have the basics clear, but this will also be a part in your syllabus, so this is there. And this electron scattering experiment is also something which is similar. So what happens is we assume that the electron is scattering from a point charge. This is an assumption that is being made for the reason that nucleus occupies a very small space. So if you have got a very small region, the electron will scatter from that part, and that we consider as a point charge. Okay, this is just an assumption. In physics we assume a lot, else we are not going to land up with the correct explanation. Once we get the explanation, we try to compare it with whatever is there in reality, whatever happens in reality, and we say that this is more or less correct. So assumption most of the time works. So what happens is, if we consider this nucleus as a point charge, so we are considering a point charge which is the nucleus, the electron scattering cross section is given by this relation. Now this is obviously a lot of terms there, okay, and then this is actually not the cross section which was derived from Rutherford scattering experiment. This was actually done by Mott, okay, this was Mott experiment, Mott scattering experiment. I'm also going to show you a difference table between the two. What is different here compared to Rutherford experiment is only the bracketed term. This is the term which is different, everything else more or less is the same, okay, everything else is more or less is the same. And I hope you did your degree in a way that you know that when we consider H and C together, this is altogether a different kind of unit that we use in nuclear physics or in atomic physics sometimes, okay, we do use it. So when we say HC, we can write down it in units of HC, okay, we are going to see it later. But then this is something which is called the, okay, this is what is called the Mott cross section. So please remember this is called the Mott cross section, which is important, and this relation is important, okay. Let's see if we can derive it, okay. If we are not deriving it, definitely this relation should be known to you. The only difference in here is this term. Apart from this is nothing but the alpha scattering experiment result, okay. We're just going to consider the electron as a result of which these things changes. What are the different terms here? Okay, some of you might already know it because these things, because if you study your atomic physics, okay, you do have the term alpha, which is nothing but your fine structure constant. You are given by 1 divided by 137. Okay, this fine structure constant also gives an idea about the distribution of mass and all. Okay, so this is important. And then P we already know is nothing but the momentum of the electron, and V is the speed of the electron. Okay. Apart from that, other terms are already known to be. Z is nothing but the number of protons that we have. H is the Planck's constant, and C is the speed of light. And then apart from that, theta, obviously the scattering angle. Okay, we are going to see into that also. But then d sigma by d omega is called the cross section or the scattering cross section.